I just wanted you to share with us what your journey has been.
I spent about 5 weeks in this space where clients dropped off. I didn't know what I was going to do. I literally surrendered and was like, okay, if there is a God, show me very, very clearly how I'm here to serve. I've got a very clear message, the sort real estate. What I was shown over the next probably 48 hours was the connection, what I'd learned from all these different things, from having been in real estate, having been a mother of a special needs child, separation, divorce, coaching other people through major life transitions, and how I'm here to best serve. When you have that standpoint and you have that as your guideposts, you really do ensure that the client or the other person succeeds, because most people selling and buying homes is laden with stress, worry, angst, distrust, mistrust. To actually be able to exit the process and actually be better off for it, that's my key intention. So let's say I've got a couple in front of me. What does home mean to you? What was home like when you were growing up? What were the parts of it that you liked? For example, I had a client that loves hosting parties and they cook a lot together. And so the kitchen was like one of the key parts of the house. I knew straight away, I was like, that house is actually going to suit them because of what I know about the way they live, what they enjoy doing.
What does it take to be a financially empowered woman? And what can financially empowered women do together to change the world? A shocking statistic is that around 400,000 women in Australia are at risk of homelessness. And the cause of this is the lack of education about how to build a financial foundation, starting even before we first enter the workforce and well into our retirement years. My name's Dion Payne, and I'm the founder of the Financially Empowered Women podcast. I'm passionate about ending homelessness, and as part of that passion, I chose to look at the systemic barriers that are causing homelessness for women in the first place. The Financially Empowered Women podcast is designed to bring you the best experts from around the world to increase your financial know-how and give you practical and women-specific tips to overcome the challenges you might be facing, such as how to negotiate a better salary, demystifying super, or how to navigate a separation and ensure the assets are distributed fairly. My role is to provide you with the best information out there to change your trajectory and become a financially empowered woman, because you deserve it, and the world needs you more than ever to own your worth and help others to do the same. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Financially Empowered Women podcast. My name's Dion Payne, I'm the host for today, and I'm joined here by Lisa Britcliffe from Orium & Co. Welcome, Lisa.
Hey, Dion, thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here as well. Now, just for some context for everybody that's watching and listening, Lisa and I go back quite a long way. We met online, and so far I've just known Lisa to be a lovely, warm human who is really motivated to help people just traverse this life in general. And now she happens to be doing that through real estate. So Lisa, I just wanted you to share with us what your journey has been so far and what it is that you're doing in real estate right now.
Okay. I'm going to try and do this as succinctly as possible, which is not always my skill. So my past or my background, I started after finishing a degree many, many, many years ago. What I want to say is I fell into real estate. I didn't believe that I chose it. And after just over a decade having 3 boys, I found that the industry I didn't feel that it was aligned with who I was. I was deeply sensitive. I felt that the type of person that I was didn't fit the mold of what it was to be a successful real estate agent. Plus I had 3 boys, one of whom had been diagnosed with special needs. And my heart was in being present with my boys, and I just didn't feel the industry was going to support that, even though I was working with my ex-husband, who was very supportive of me being around and being involved with the kids. So I left the industry, I walked away, I swore I would never, ever come back, and I went on a more personal journey, which really lasted for about 14 years, where I ended up studying for hours, hundreds and thousands of hours about people, about human condition, about what had people suffer, what had people thrive. I went through my own a dark night of the soul. And inside of that, it led me to a point where my husband, my now ex-husband, and I separated, and that was about 6 years ago. And through that, I had been helping people, supporting people, but I just organically fell into supporting women and men who were exiting out of leaving relationships and helping them do it in a really, as much of a harmonious place as possible. So I didn't tend to work with people where there was a high conflict, but I supported people really through a transition with a lot more ease than they were anticipating. And so I had my background in real estate. I was coaching, and I got to a point probably 2.5 years ago, and I knew that there was something that I was not listening to, and that was really how I was supposed to be of service in this world. Felt like I had achieved what I needed to do inside the coaching space, but my heart was just not in it any longer. And I'm a people person, and as much as I was loving helping people individually, I was getting really fatigued by it. And I knew that my purpose was not aligned with coaching for the rest of my days. It took me getting really, really unwell, which I've shared with you, and I spent about 5 weeks in this space where clients dropped off. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no clue, and I literally surrendered and was like, okay, if there is a God, show me very, very clearly how I'm here, how I'm here to serve. Because my biggest thing is we're all here to serve. What's my purpose from here on in? I'm 51 years old. Inside that time, I got a very clear, and it was only about 3 or 4 weeks in, got a very clear message, the sort real estate. What I was shown over the next probably 48 hours was the connection, all the dots that connected to my life experience, what I'd done, what I'd learned from all these different things, from having been in real estate, having been a mother of a special needs child, separation, divorce, coaching other people through major life transitions. And all of that really helping me, one, understand who I was born, how I was created, and what my gifts are and what my abilities are and how I'm here to best serve. Like, that was one of the key things. And so in doing that, as we know, we've had many conversations about this, the more authentic we are to how we've been designed, how we've been created, the more we can be of service to another. So with that, I was shown, and the other thing I knew through the coaching is one of my gifts is being able to see opportunities, seeing potentials for other people and helping them step into the unknown. For most people, and I can put my hand up, I'm not always great at stepping into the unknown. In fact, I get afraid, but I have this knack and this skill to be able to really guide people to glide through these major transitions with more ease and grace. So this vision was placed on my heart as to how I could step into real estate in my unique way, doing things which are totally human-centered, not self-centered. Like, I knew, because all my needs are met now, because I believe in something greater than self, and I know through him that I'm totally supported, totally loved, that, my path is set. It now allows me to be in a place where I'm actually able to hear what others need and give them what they need, as opposed to self-seeking. That was a very long answer to your question.
And it was a very beautiful answer to my question as well. And it strikes me, and obviously we know this, but I just want to bring this for the context of the audience. We've been on a very similar path, not the same experiences, but how do we be truly authentically ourselves in an industry, real estate, property development, which is very inauthentic in general. So I hear you, I feel you. And I just wanted to acknowledge you for doing the work to find the path that did align with your values, where you are in an industry that is typically very self-serving, but you found a way to make it work and actually be of service to others.
And as we both know, and I was really contemplating this the other day, when you are about others, not self, like on genuinely, and I'm checking in, like, am I wanting, is this for me or is this for them? So there is no pressure, there is no coercion, there is no control, there is no trying to persuade someone for the better of self. I'm really, really conscious of that. When you have that standpoint and you have that as your guideposts, you really do ensure that the client or the other person succeeds. They can't not succeed. If their best interests at the heart of all choices or decisions, they succeed beyond their wildest dreams. And that might be succeeding in price, but it also might be succeeding in ways they hadn't even anticipated through the selling and buying of property. Because most people selling and buying homes is laden with stress, worry, angst, distrust, mistrust, all of that. So to actually be able to exit the process and actually be better off for it, that's my key intention.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I think just buying and selling property is a very emotional and fraught time anyway. But doing that at a time when you may be exiting a relationship is sort of adds another layer as well. What's interesting is that I tend to do my podcast back to back. I have podcast day, which is on Thursday. And the podcast that I had previously was a lady who she had divorced her partner. It was very acrimonious. She really didn't get much out of that divorce process. She was talking about all of the traps that people fall into when they do divorce if they haven't got things sorted out in the beginning in terms of prenuptial or postnuptial agreements. And so that was a kind of it was a very important episode, but it wasn't the happy, joyous episode that I normally do enjoy. I enjoyed it very much, and I think, like I said, it's an important episode to have. But what I'm keen to hear is that you mentioned something before about helping people to exit relationships and enter into homes with ease and grace. It seems to me that your relationship, that the ending of your relationship was a very intentional and also, may I say, harmonious process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So what I know now is that we are the minority, and I don't say that egotistically or we are the minority. So I feel grateful that I did have that. But as we know, what one person's challenge is not another, but another person will have challenges that I'll have challenges that another person doesn't have. Because I feel like I've seen the spectrum of suffering, I've seen the spectrum of what other people go through in all forms of loss. Yep. And loss is something that all humans go through from a very young age, be that irrespective of whether they've even left a marriage or lost a loved one or lost whatever it might be. Everyone has experienced loss. So the common denominator in that is grief and overwhelm. So everyone knows that, right? Because I have an understanding and an integration and the wisdom that has been received from going through and traversing grief, which isn't a linear process, it's not an end and a start. It has allowed me to be with somebody whilst they're going through that process, going through that emotion, but knowing what it's like to go through that, where great decisions are not made. The last thing you want is to be pressured or to be rushed into something. Yeah. So I'm very, very, very aware of I'm so in tune with what people need through this process, obviously needing to move them forward, yes, but doing it in a way that's very in tune with them and very aware of what is actually going to be of benefit and in the best interest of the person, as opposed to somebody wanting to push it through to get a deal done. I don't know if I answered that question, but that's what came out of my mouth.
I'm not sure if it answered the question, but it was a good answer. And when you were talking, I drew a little diagram. I'm not going to show you the diagram because it's probably not going to come out very well, and I didn't draw it particularly well anyway. But it makes me think of, so we're all so individual. We've all had these, we all have these different skills and experiences. And I think the beauty of what you do is the fact that you have that real estate experience, you have that coaching experience, and you've also walked that path of, ending a relationship, exiting a relationship, and then having to figure out what comes next. That's quite a unique perspective, and a valuable perspective to somebody that is that is exiting a relationship and is looking for their next steps.
And it's quite similar also, different but similar to somebody who's lost a loved one, i.e. a widow, because we're working with women in that space. And so the same things aren't present. It's different but same. And so again, being able to meet and be in tune with someone to help them navigate, is it the right time to sell? Is this going to be best for me to be able to move forward? To give them the peace of mind insofar as looking at buying and selling and what does that look like and what's the right strategy for you as a person, given your experience, given your lifestyle, given your what you're envisioning for the next stage of the next phase of your life. So they really are similar, which is why I know that I've been called back into real estate to really help in these places where somebody's emotions can have them, as I was saying before, can have them making choices or feeling pressured, because that does happen in real estate, feeling pressured to make choices that are actually not in the best interest of them.
It reminds me, so I'm actually helping a client through a real estate transaction at the moment, and they're an Indigenous organisation that are looking for a healing centre for women. So it's a really beautiful piece of work to be involved in. And so we do have to deal with real estate agents, and some of them have been fantastic, but others, I've just been able to see, and in my role as, I've done property development, I've bought and sold a lot of properties. I know the tricks that real estate agents can play. And so, being able to walk with my clients to find the right property and just be that buffer in terms of those tricks. Sometimes it still surprises me that people are still playing those games, to be honest. And I just feel really privileged that I can be there for my clients and really be there for their best interest. But I say that to sort of acknowledge the point that you were making about helping them to not feel pressured into something, helping them to make the right decision that's best for them. It's a very and I hadn't thought of this until this time point now, but it's a very privileged role to be in, to be honest with you.
Well, it is, because they trust you so implicitly to know how to navigate, say in inverted commas, the game, and it's not the game for everyone. And just speaking to that point about you're still surprised, and I too can be surprised at times that this exists in the industry. But then if I look at the way that the industry is modelled, what is actually acceptable, what you need to do to be successful, on the whole, it's little wonder that people are still operating that way, which is hence why people like me, and there are more and more. I mean, I'm by far, I'm not the only one. There are many that are doing this, really making a stand, pioneering a human-centred approach to real estate, which actually does lead to success. I think the thing is, it's the old model that you need to be aggressive, masculine, pressured, competitive to actually create a successful result. And actually, as you and I know, that does not necessarily often lead to a successful result. It can be far greater when you take a present, intuitive, interested, respected approach. Smart, obviously you need the skill set to be able to do it and the expertise, but put that into the equation and it leads to a far greater and far more successful result for people.
Yes, because as we both know, housing is really transformative. When you find the right home, and when you look at this from the perspective of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, housing is really important. And so it's one of the most important decisions that we make and one of the most precious feelings that we can get when we get it right. So it shouldn't be left to the traditional way of doing things and, sort of ramp up the price and bid people against each other. It really should be about, well, let's find the right home for you.
And so then into that point about finding the right home, a question I was asked by a referral partner that I met with last week. He said to me, Lisa, what makes you different? Like, what's your point of difference? And I said, well, I believe it's that we're deeply in tune with the market and with people. That's the difference, deeply in tune with people, which is where the coaching comes in. And my business partner, Damien, is also incredibly intuitive about people. But so, when you mentioned something just then about like finding people the right home, what questions are being asked of the person or the people as to establish what is the right home? Yeah. So one of the things that I do is I do a deep dive process where I actually really establish what does home mean. So let's say I've got a couple in front of me. What does home mean to you? What does home mean to you? What was home like when you were growing up? What were the parts of it that you liked? What were the parts of it that you didn't like? What are the things in your home? Like, what do you do? For example, I had a client that loves hosting parties and they cook a lot together. And so the kitchen was like one of the key parts of the house, more so than, say, for me, right? Because I don't do a lot of cooking. My partner does more cooking. So, but just understanding that. So when I saw this particular house, I knew straight away. I was like, that house is actually going to suit them because of what I know about the way they live, what they enjoy doing, how they come together as a family, and how they celebrate. So the quality, I love that quote. The quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. I just think there's so much truth in that.
Yeah, 100%. And when we think of home in that way as the container for all of these interactions and sort of celebrations and just that sense of having a home where you can you can shut the doors and everything's okay. That's a beautiful thing to aspire to, and that's a beautiful thing to help people get to.
Yeah, where they feel safe and secure and they belong. They can find places to connect with each other. If they're people that need the space to like be able to connect individually, like on their own, like really being aware that big open plan houses, if that's what it is, actually don't suit everyone, because a lot of people need spaces to retreat. So where are those spaces in the house? If they're not there, can you create them somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what are some of the barriers that you find women are facing when they're looking for their home, particularly if they have separated and they're looking for themselves?
I would say, I don't know if I would say barriers, but I would say the challenges. The challenges that I see are making a lot of assumptions. I'm trying to work it out for themselves, what that would look like. Well, I can't afford to buy because I need to, for example, I need to sell first before actually seeking professional advice. So one of the things that I've done a lot with a lot of our single clients is, okay, the first thing you need to do is you need to speak to a mortgage broker and you need to speak to somebody in finance. I've got a very, very solid network in Melbourne. So that would be that's the first thing to do. So that's one of the biggest challenges, or thinking that they actually need to do it on their own, or that they may not afford to be able to do that. So they try and sort of work it out for themselves. That's a key challenge. Those together are probably the main things that we see. And then the other challenge is for some women is, okay, so now that do I want to, for example, I don't really know what I'm doing because I might not have bought a house on my own, but I don't really want to be potentially eating into my pocket to be able to engage an advocate. So I'm going to try and do it on my own, even though they haven't necessarily navigated the industry, haven't navigated talking to agents, finding out different strategies, working out the game for themselves. So that's another challenge, is because as we both know, anyone can buy a property, but and I've heard numerous stories of single women recently having bought property. Are they buying them well? No. Are they buying them on terms that set them up well? No. And that's a big one, the terms. We will often look to negotiate longer settlements, and we have recently for a few of our clients longer settlements, which puts them in a position where there isn't the pressure, rather than just going with what's being advertised. But unless you know that, to ask that, or you have the confidence to be able to ask that, or you know how to read the play, read how the agents, what they're actually saying, is what they're saying true and honest? They're the challenges, because as I would say, I'm not a financial advisor, so I would not even think that I could give any advice on anything financial to someone, which is why I put them in watch, which is why I connect them to someone that I know in the financial area. But I think, I think the biggest challenge is women thinking that they can do it on their own, but actually not necessarily making good choices, or necessarily doesn't open them up to different opportunities because they can't see it.
Yeah, I remember a quote that I heard some time ago that a good buyer's advocate will actually save you money and also be the buffer between you and the agent. So, they know how to play the game. So then you don't have to. You don't have to, sort of come up against that and feel the pressure of that.
But also all agents have different strategies. So particularly if something's being sold, let's say something's being sold privately or sold before auction or sold after auction, not under auction conditions, every agent will work through that process differently. So actually being clear about the process, clear about that agent's strategy, because otherwise you can miss out and you can overpay. There's a whole host of things that can happen unless you're very clear and the agent's made it very clear about the process.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Lisa, we're at the end of our episode today. So how can people get hold of you if they're looking for somebody that can be a trusted advocate for them when it comes to buying property?
So the best way, if you want to check me out, get a bit more, know me a little bit more, I post regularly on LinkedIn under my name, Lisa Britcliffe. Otherwise, website oriumandco.com. They're the best two ways. And I've actually if there's anyone listening that is going through a separation and divorce, I have just written a mini book, which is about to be formatted and designed, which is the next chapter, is a fresh new chapter, navigating buying and selling with clarity and confidence beyond divorce. So if there is anyone that would like that, it is a free resource. Reach out on my website and I'd be happy to send it to you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you for that. That's such a gift. And, obviously in that time, emotions are running high. So just to have something in black and white that you can read and just put your mind at peace, even a little bit, would be a really valuable resource. So thank you for that.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been a real pleasure.
And you too. Thanks, Tion.